Welcome you to today's edition of Converting Differences to Strength. So, today let's talk about communication. Communication is very, very important in relationship, in marriage. In fact, a lot of conflicts and issues that married couple encounter in their marriage is because of lack of effective communication. So, communication is actually the engine that drives every relationship. Without communication, the relationship cannot thrive. All right. So, if you want to improve on your relationship, you want to improve on your marriage, then you need to improve on your communication skills. When there is a breakdown in communication, there's going to be a breakdown in marriage, in that relationship. There are a lot of times that um, couples communicate, but they tend not to understand. The man does not understand what the woman is saying. The woman misunderstands what the man is saying. The reason is just because there is no adequate communication skills in place. A relationship begins with communication. It is sustained by communication. If you want to improve on your marriage or your relationship, then you got to improve on your communication. Now, let's look at this. At the beginning of every relationship, it begins with excitement. All right, the couple, they are open with one another. They're vulnerable. The man opens up and then he tells, he's free to share his opinions, his idea, and the woman also. So they both rap together. They open up to each other because of the excitement at the beginning of the relationship, and with that excitement it graduates into courtship, and then it graduates into marriage. And at the beginning of the marriage everything is rosy, and then suddenly there begins to you begin to see certain frictions in marriage. You begin to see some kind of the man begins to hide certain information from the wife begins to hide certain information from the husband, and this can actually be traceable to breakdown in relationships. So let's talk about some symptoms of communication breakdown. So when there is breakdown in communication in marriage, there are certain symptoms that when you begin to see them, you know that there is a breakdown in communication in marriage. The first one is the fear of criticism. Fear. All right. I can also call that insecurity. So when a woman is scared or she's afraid of the way the husband will criticize her when she comes out with an idea or when she tries to pass an information across, if she's scared that, oh, my husband might criticize me, then she will prefer to just maybe keep to herself and not share those ideas. And the same applies to the man as well. When the man sees that I'm going to get a sharp criticism from my wife, he tries to it tries to hold certain information to himself, and that shows that there is a gap in communication. And when this begins to happen, it can actually have a negative effect on marriage. So when there is fear of criticism, when there is insecurity, you are scared of being attacked, you are scared of being criticized, then it's a symptom of breakdown in communication. Number two is lack of trust. When the man or the woman, either of the couple, when you don't trust your spouse, then it is a symptom of breakdown in communication. The Bible talks about the fact that in the book of Genesis, Adam and Eve, they were naked and they were not ashamed. So the standard of God is for man and woman, the husband and the wife, to be open to each other, nothing to hide. All right. But when there is lack of trust, all right, then one of them will not be able to open up to the other, because by the time you open up, he might begin to blame you, or he might just criticize you sharply, and then, or maybe when you open up to her, She might just go ahead and begin to share with her friends those things that you feel you don't want to go out of the confines of your marriage. So when there is lack of trust, when there is, and then suspicion begins to set in. Suspicion, the man begins to suspect the wife begins to suspect the woman. Why? Because there are certain things you did not talk about. Maybe there are some things you feel there's no need to talk about this. I don't need to talk about it. I can handle it. No, you need to talk about everything. That is one of the starting points to a healthy communication in marriage. You need to talk about everything. Suspicion. When you begin to suspect your spouse, then there is problem. Number 3, constant argument. When you see a man and a woman that they are always arguing, anytime they want to decide or make decisions on particular issues, they have to argue every day. It is a sign that they are not getting it right in communication. The communication skills are not there, and they need to actually acquire communication skills. One of the major reasons where there is always argument between a husband and the wife is because they do not understand that there is a language of communication for your spouse. The language of communication for the man is different from the language of communication for the woman. So there are 2 languages of communication. Number 1 is the language of respect, the other is the language of love. And both of these 2 languages, they have their rules. For example, the language of love, the rule is that whatever you want to say, you have to say it out of love, correcting one another in love. That is what the word of God says. So you want to rebuke your wife, you want to correct your wife, you have to do that in love. And then the language of respect means that the rules of the language of respect has to do with do's and don'ts. There are certain things you don't do. You don't yell, you don't scream on your husband. There are certain times you don't talk. There are times that are fit for discussion. There are times that are not fit. So majorly the language of the man is the language of respect. The language that the man understands is the language of respect. Every man wants to be respected, and the language that the woman understands is actually the language of love. So as a man, you want to communicate with your wife, communicate with love. Then as the woman, you want to communicate effectively with your husband, you need to communicate with respect. Yes, there are ways you might have a very good idea you want to pass across, but if you are not passing that idea with respect, if you're not doing it in the right manner, it can be misinterpreted by your husband. So these 2 languages, the language of love and the language of respect, they are very, very important.